All day verb. Let's go. Thanks the resub, Peepa. Sorry to hear that, Roya. It's a random number. Yeah, fucked.
Neopets, one of the web's earliest pet sites in the virtual world that launched 1,000 virtual worlds. There's a good chance that any young adult you ask will have many fond memories of Neopets.
I don't have many fond memories of Neopets.
About their beloved Jub or the time they accrued millions of Neopoints through illicit trading and became a tycoon. You know, typical kid stuff. But it wasn't all rainbows and fairies on Neopets, and the site is infamous for the many scandals that it's gotten itself into over the years. Today, let me take you on a journey, an exploration of the many strange scandals that our beloved Neopets has gotten itself into over the years. Before we get on with the video, I'd just like to give a massive thank you to today's sponsor, Honey. I'm sure that these days most of the shopping you do is probably online. That's where Honey comes in. Honey
Webkins was the shit.
To understand all of Neopets' controversies, we first have to start at the beginning. Neopets was created by Adam Powell and Donna Williams, who conceived the idea in 1997 and launched the site in November of 1999. In the beginning, the goal of the site was to, quote, keep university students entertained and possibly make some cash from banner advertising. The site was fairly simple. Users would look after their own virtual pets, play minigames, and chat to others on the forum. The original site was extremely rough around the edges, littered with pop culture references and half-baked creature designs, but the ideas were all there. The creature designs were strange yet lovable, the games were simple yet addictive, and a system where Neopets had to be cared for regularly kept players coming back for more. By Christmas of 1999,
it was a very smart idea.
Over 600,000 views daily, and the developers were struggling to keep up with the server costs and surge of popularity. Powell and Williams had no idea that the site would blow up so much in just a little under a month, and so they began looking for investors who could help them manage their newly viral site. And this is where we reach controversy number 1.
Scientology and shady advertising. Alright, we're already starting off strong.
Adam and Donna met Doug During, who agreed to invest in Neopets alongside several other investors. They all brought shares in early January of 2000, presumably waiting until after the turn of the century, just in case Y2K wiped out the entire Neopets website.
And it almost did.
It's always good to be on the safe side. During himself founded Neopets Inc. just a month later, turning the once unknown website into a bona fide brand in just a few months. So Neopets was saved, they were able to upgrade their servers and now work full-time on the bustling website. The artwork was upgraded and the features were piling up. From battling pets to trading items to investing in the in-game stock market, the site became a place for kids to explore and express themselves. Many have even cited the website as a sort of safe haven for kids in the early 2000s during a time where the internet could be openly unfriendly beyond your small web ring of friends. So Neopets
the internet's
was the
always
hottest new
been
trend,
friendly.
And despite its original demographic of college students and
These are
young
good
adults,
people.
it's a big hit with kids and tweens. It seemed like everything was going great, and at the time it very much was, but it would come out years later that Doug During and his team were Scientologists. Now, for legal reasons, all of this is completely alleged, and this is all in the context of education and entertainment in the form of recounting a series of events that happened according to
I'm not gonna sue you or anything. You can just start lying
if
you
want. Out of
want.
the way, let's
Make it
continue.
interesting.
For a period of about
They're
5 years in the
Scientologists.
early 2000s, Doug
They
During was
collected
the
eyeballs, I
CEO
don't
and
care.
primary investor in Neopets, and also happened to be a Scientologist. This has become something of an urban legend in modern times, with rumors of brainwashing and subliminal messages being spread around. Some claim that one of the pets, the Zweetok, was actually named after the Scientologist figure Xenu, and in a now deleted article, Kotaku claimed that employees were pressured into joining Scientology. However, none of this was actually true and would be debunked by the creators themselves. Scientology actually made much less of an impact on the site than many people have claimed. In a Reddit AMA from 2015, Donna Williams wrote about the role of Scientology on Neopets in the early years. Quote, "The company was structured like a Scientology org. It didn't really change anything that I noticed apart from some odd tests that interviewees had to take consisting of questions like which straight lines seem friendlier and stuff like that.
Sounds like a normal question to
We also had a lot of
answer.
obscure celebrities coming around the office for tours. At one time there was some talk about putting Scientology education on the site, but we killed that idea pretty sharpish.
cool.
Adam and I made sure that it never made its way onto anything site related. Religion and politics were two big no-nos for us as far as site content went. Can't say the discussions we had to keep it that way were much fun though. Tom Cruise totally came around the office,
No
didn't
idea,
he?
rah-rah.
The reason that the company was, quote, structured like a Scientology org has been attributed to the claim that During was using the org board, a Scientologist business model, to run the company. While Adam and Donna felt that this didn't heavily impact the company, others felt differently about this business model. Patricia Illingworth, a senior fellow at the Kennedy School of Government's Carr Center for Human Rights at Harvard, was quoted in an Outline article calling the business model morally unethical for a variety of reasons. Regardless, aside from
Why
a
not
lot
just
of
make a
fear-mongering and
Scientology church
childhood
in
ruined
Neopets?
posts
I
about
think they should have.
Scientology's involvement, the organization itself had
Imagine
little
the cool
bearing on the
mini-games.
website. Due to Adam and Donna's refusal
Threats,
to add politics or religion to
suing,
the game, it remained
teach kids some
largely
valuable
unchanged
stuff.
in that regard. It turns out that the most interesting thing that Doug During brought to the table wasn't Scientology, but something called immersive advertising. During the early days of the site, Adam and Donna had been making money from pop-up and banner ads, which were commonplace
Learn
on the
to
internet
feed
at the time.
Xenu.
However, Doug During was a businessman first
that'd
and
be cool.
foremost, and putting that business acumen to work, he created something that he called immersive advertising. Instead of advertising brands and products through explicit ads, why not incorporate the advertising into the game? This may not seem that egregious. These days, product placement is pretty common, with everything from movies to TV shows to music videos having those shots that linger just a little bit too long on a pair of Beats headphones or a Coke
Nice
can.
resub,
Back in the
JL.
early 2000s though, for a game like Neopets, this was virtually unheard of. From a 2002 Time magazine article, quote, "At the Neopia food shop, Uh-Oh Oreo cookies, Nestle Sweethearts, and Laffy Taffy candy, along with unprocessed foods, have occasionally
Neopets
been
equals the
available to
OG
buy with
metaverse.
Neopoints to feed virtual pets. Kids can also win points by watching cereal ads or movie
The
trailers in the
Scientology
Disney
one's not
theater.
that
The
crazy
Neopets
so
team were
far.
adding
So it just seems like they were Scientologists, but it didn't really do much. Let me see the other shit.
It turns out that it wasn't just targeted advertising that was raising concerns on Neopets.com. Many parents had begun to worry about the normalization of gambling on the website. Neopets
Gambling's
had a whole
fine.
host of
It's
addictive
just
gambling
free
games,
money.
from Brucey B slots to Bilge
You
Dice
just
to Wheel of
win
Excitement,
and you
even
can't
had casino
lose.
games like blackjack and poker. There was also, of course, the Neopian stock market, where kids could put together their very own portfolio of
Holy
fictional
shit.
investments and watch haplessly as all their stocks plummeted. Also, fun fact, apparently
fucking
shortly
awesome.
before Viacom purchased Neopets, Doug During admitted that he purposely messed with the
Thanks, Risa
Neopian
Bryant.
stock market to bankrupt the in-game companies.
Robo
Such a
Dino.
fucking troll. Of course, these games were played with Neopoints, a virtual currency. It's not like Neopets was getting all these kids into real debt over Jub blackjack.
Maybe Walrus.
But the fact that there were so many games based upon real-life gambling on this kids' site did raise concerns.
The new
Some may
Chucky
see this
show?
as an
No.
overreaction, but the media that kids consume does have an impact on them and kind of shapes their worldview, so gamifying and normalizing gambling, it's a little off. These rising concerns came to a head in 2004 when Neopets partnered with
I know
McDonald's
Neopets
to
has
include
NFTs
Neopets
now.
plushies with every
I
Happy
heard.
Meal. Damn, McDonald's toys used to actually be good. These are some
Like the
sweet
Prime
pieces
Wizard.
of merch. Anyway, every Neopet plushie came with a tag which directed kids to the Neopets website, and when one mother, quote, discovered her 9-year-old playing online poker to feed his virtual pet, she went to the media, because of course she did. She contacted Australian current affairs show Today Tonight, who aired the story Parents Not McHappy Over Pokey Toy. For those outside of Australia
title.
and New Zealand, a pokey is another word for a fruit machine / poker machine. I couldn't for the life of me find any video.
This is the most Australian shit ever. If you want to know anything in Australia, like what the slang means, just take the word and add an IE or an EY to it. That's how they do all their fucking slang.
Current affairs show Today
It's so
Tonight, who aired the
fucking
story
goofy.
Parents Not
Every single thing in Australia has this. Literally everything. Oh my god, it's so fucking frustrating. Let me pull up a list. I think it's something like 500 Australian slang have whatever plus IE or EY. It makes me so mad. It's 125 different words. Oh my god, like breakfast is called brekkie. Of course, the most known one, barbecue, Barbie. It's fucking everything. Teapots are called a Billy. One barbecue, Barbie. It's fucking everything. Teapots are called a Billy for some reason. Oh, it's so stupid. An umbrella is called a Brawly. Christmas is called Chrissy. Cigarette, Siggy. Coldy is beer. Oh. It hurts. It fucking hurts. Thanks for 5 gift subs, Venom. Appreciate it. Thank you, man. And thanks for the tier 1 Venom and tier 1 Zach. Resub El Moto. There's 3 different, like, baby words for beer. It's a frothy, a coldie, and what was the other one? I just passed it. Is it an esky? Yeah, an esky. And they call Facebook facey, a flannel shirt flanny, football is footy. Ugh. Rumors are called furfies. They have the worst slang of all time. It's like actual 4-year-olds come up with their slang and then they adopt it. Thanks to resub Walrus. Alright. It's so weird.
McHappy over Pokey toy. For those outside of Australia and New Zealand, a Pokey is another word for a fruit machine / poker machine. I couldn't for the life of me find any videos of this segment from Today Tonight, but a transcript of the broadcast reads, among the activities the site offers are virtual pokies, roulette games, and card games where one of the cute characters teaches children the rules of poker and blackjack. As Michelle's son Harley explains, you need to gamble to raise points to feed your
Australian
virtual
slang
Neopets.
for roof?
He says if you don't gamble up enough points to
have
feed your
no
pet, it goes
idea.
to the orphanage.
Probably
Players who
something
don't win
super
enough
fucking
points
stupid,
gambling to buy
like a
food
Sealy.
actually have to send their Neopets to a virtual soup kitchen. A 9-year-old boy doesn't have the ability to question, Michelle said.
Roofie?
He doesn't even know what a
Oh,
virtual
I see what
soup
you're
kitchen
trying to set
is.
up.
Child
Thought you were genuinely
psychologist Michael
asking.
Cargreg says that this is a surefire way to turn our kids into gambling addicts. He says children just don't have the critical facilities needed to understand the dangers of adult-style gambling. As far as I'm concerned, this is sanitizing, normalizing, and glamorizing gambling, Mr. Cargreg said.
Goddamn right
I
it
don't
is.
necessarily disagree in terms of the ethics of adding gambling to a kid's game, but this news
There's some
article was
Gabriel unit and
blatantly
cheese.
wrong. Yes, Neopets did have gambling games, but they were optional, and Neopets never had a system where pets would be taken to an orphanage if they weren't fed. There were plenty of non-gambling games on the site that you could earn Neo points on, and the worst thing that would happen to your pet
True,
if you starved
Yeti.
it was that they would
Thanks
look
for
a
some
bit sad
cheese.
and you'd feel guilty for the crime of virtual pet neglect. Also, it's called the pound, not the orphanage. Get it together, Harley. The kid was only 9, so it's possible that he misunderstood the site or didn't know how to properly explain it, or maybe his mother took it out of context, I don't know. Regardless of the fact that all of this information could have been debunked if the producers of Today Tonight had spent 5 minutes on the website, they
Why would they
obviously
do
weren't
that?
going to do that, so
Outrage
the story
sells.
aired. It caused a huge
all
amount of
about
controversy
outrage,
and drew
baby.
the attention of
Let's get
multiple
mad.
anti-gambling groups and of course flocks of worried parents, eventually resulting in the
Kappa.
banning of all gambling games for Australian players. Yes, every chance-based game from blackjack to craps, crops, was disabled for players in Australia due to this little debacle. This was only a temporary ban as McDonald's had pressured the Neopets
Jub Jub
team into
Blackjack was
disabling
the
these
shit.
games for the
I
duration
don't
of the
remember
Happy
half
Meal
of these.
promotion. After all, the games weren't just disabled for kids in Australia, but adults too, meaning that even legal adults who could actually gamble in real life couldn't play virtual Coconut Shy. The outrage eventually died down when users found out that they could change their country settings to work around this ban, and I believe that it was eventually lifted, but the ban would have a more permanent impact on the site than originally thought. Because of this debacle, Neopets ended up restricting gambling games to kids 13 or over, which many people found pretty ridiculous and arbitrary. Like, a 12-year-old isn't allowed to gamble, but a 13-year-old is?
Yeah, 'cause then they're-
fans of Bilge
they're
Dice, these
fully
games were here to
developed,
stay,
I
even
guess.
if the
They've got
10-year-old
their
gambling
gambling
addict
brain
demographic was
going.
cut off.
Getting kids addicted to gambling is so profitable. Like that's the move. That's the move. That's the wave. That's
In
what you need.
2005, Viacom purchased Neopets for $160 million, and shortly after this, original creators Adam Powell and Donna Williams left Neopets Inc. due to creative differences. By this point, Neopets had over 35 million players and was one of the most popular or sticky websites on the internet. Yes, that's the real term. So things were going well for Neopets, and as is typical with small projects that get large and corporate, Viacom decided that they wanted to overhaul the website a bit. See, the original Neopets art was rudimentary, and over the years many different artists had been brought on board to do various bits and pieces. This resulted in a patchwork of art styles, all of varying quality, making the site look very rough and kinda mashed together, which in my opinion is honestly what gave it a lot of charm. However, like I said, Neopets was going corporate, and so all of the pets were given brand new art. This wasn't just for aesthetic
Whoa,
purposes
this is
though.
kinda like
The
furry
previous
now.
artwork was basically just a flat PNG, while the new artwork was layered and would allow for the pets to be dressed up and accessorized. So most pets on the site were given new artwork and were called converted pets because they were converted from the old art style into the new art style. However, some pets were allowed to remain in the old art style and were called unconverted pets. The thing that determined whether pets would be converted or left unconverted was their color.
I thought it was going to be Scientology based.
Up using clothes, the main way to customize them was by recoloring them using an item called the paintbrush. Paintbrushes came in basic colors, which would simply change the color of the pet, but also came in more uncommon colors which were themed and would change the pet's entire pose and base. Most basic colors were converted, but a select few remained unconverted. For example, Plushy, Fairy, Grey, Darrigan, Royal, Sponge, and Maraquin were a few colors that remained unconverted. Unconverted pets, or UCs for short, were able to be converted if the user wanted to dress them up, but once converted they could not go back to being unconverted. This made UCs very rare and highly valued, both because the old artwork was way more charming and expressive, and also because as soon as you make something rare, it becomes 10 times as appealing. A list of over 700 unconverted Neopets stuck in the pound. You don't understand, people had collectively been searching for hundreds of hours using this method and had turned up maybe a handful. 700 UCs were just posted. It was carnage. This occurred during the early hours of the morning around 6 AM PST, so not too many people were on the boards. And yet, at one of Neopets' emptiest hours, the pound chat became a flurry of frantic activity with users scrambling to claim these UCs. Most users rushed to claim the UCs with the highest value, but upon finding that they had already been claimed, they scrambled to take whatever was left. The original poster dubbed UC Santa for the conversion. The Neopets team said that they could not and would not make any new UCs, and yet here Jungle Boo
2020
a trading chain in simple terms is where you take a pet, trade it for a slightly higher value pet, and repeat for months on end until you get a pet that's valuable enough to trade for a UC. It's a very slow and frustrating process, and users may have to trade tens of times to finally get a UC. If the Neopets team found out lag bugs,
none of these are like really dark. You guys said it was like
Jumpstart
really
was
heavy
the site
shit.
fall into disrepair, and the general feeling was that they didn't seem to really get Neopets. This lack of site upkeep came to a head in June 2015 on Sunday the 28th. Sunday, the Lord's Day, a day of reverent prayer and holy worship, a day.
I thought Neopets was gonna get real crazy, but it didn't. Why did you believe Chet? I have no fucking idea. To be fair, it started off going on about how Scientology played a role in Neopets, which is cool. And then gambling, which is cool, I guess. But then it's just all about, like, people spending money for UC and converted pets. It's like, Biggest cheating scandal in Trackmania history. We already watched that. Have you heard of Taskmaster? Of course I have. And probably a race, yeah. Seen the scariest disease ever? No, and I'm not going to. I'm absolutely not watching that. 18th century London mansion owned